Hello, today I am very excited to be talking about the fourth volume of Heartstopper by Oseman. If you've watched my recent videos, you may know that I've been reading this series and really enjoying it. Recently, I read the fourth volume as well as some others in the series, so you'll see reviews of those very soon. And I really enjoyed this one, and I have a lot to say about this one. I think this has so far been the best one of the series, and I thought there were a lot of good things about this, so I'm excited to tell you about it. So the way I try to make these reviews spoiler-free is trying not to talk about things that happen later on in the book, but still telling you what it's about. But since this is a series, there's some information about this book that you may just not be able to know unless you've read other books. So I'm just letting you know in case you haven't read anything of this series and you're interested in it. If you want to go in as blind as possible, you probably shouldn't watch this. So I would mostly recommend this to people who either aren't planning on watching it or people who have read up until right before the fourth volume. But I won't be talking about the end of this volume. So volume 4 goes over quite a few months in Nick and Charlie's lives. They both have quite a few things going on. Charlie and Nick have been officially together for quite a while now, but they've never actually told each other that they love each other, and Charlie wants to do that, but he's nervous about when and how to do that, if Nick feels the same way. Nick still hasn't come out to his dad, so his dad doesn't know about his relationship with Charlie, and Nick is also worried about Charlie's potential eating disorder, which he seems to have, and he wants to help support him with that. So there are conflicts and problems in this, but it is pretty contemporary and slice of life. There were so many things I liked about this volume. I've been loving the series in general, and I've given all the books 5 stars so far. I really like how Nick and Charlie take certain moments of a relationship seriously. It doesn't feel like they rush into things, and it feels like the books really emphasize certain parts of relationships that other people might think of casually or take for granted. It emphasizes the importance of those moments and things and shows how special they are. I think this series is really about love. It's not about lust or physical attraction or being with each other for the wrong reasons. I think it's really about the two of them loving each other and connecting and wanting to support and help each other. In this volume, we got to see and learn more about Charlie's family, and I'm enjoying them more. I mostly like Nick and Charlie. I don't absolutely love a lot of the side characters. I love Nick's mom. I felt that way about her already. But a lot of them I don't have super strong feelings about. But I did see more of Charlie's family in this, his mom, dad, brother, and sister, and I am starting to like them more, especially his siblings. In this volume, you also continue to see more of Nick and Charlie's friend group and the relationships within it. The main focus of this series is Nick and Charlie, but there are some other relationships, especially between their friends. So you get to see some of that as well. And I feel like the friends all have different personalities. They don't all feel the same. And I think that this series has good friendship in it. It's not just about the romance between the two main characters. I've talked about the art in this series before, but I really love the art. I think it looks really nice, and I'll show you an example from the book. So some of this volume takes place at the beach, and I think with the color scheme that this graphic novel series has, it looks really nice with that kind of setting. And I just like the color scheme and art style in general. I thought this book had good attention to detail in both the writing and the art. I thought the way that some things were done were very clever. This volume deals a lot with mental health, mental illness, specifically about eating disorders and anxiety. There was a lot about that in this volume. There was a little bit about that in the previous volume, but it's heavier and more prevalent in this one. There is more about self-harm as well, which was also mentioned in the previous volume. I think that even in the first volume, this series, while generally being cute, sweet, and wholesome, has always dealt with serious, important, real topics. And I think that this was so far the heaviest volume. I thought the writing and the art did a good job at portraying Charlie's feelings of anxiety. It's not only about mental health and mental illness, but also how love ties in with that, and it's about being too dependent on someone. So I'm glad it goes over that, because I personally don't really like in a romance or in real life when you just base all your happiness on one person, or you just rely on them, or you think you can fix them, or they can fix you. So I think that this book handles that really well. The relationship between Nick and Charlie has never felt toxic, but it's also not perfect. Like, they do have disagreements and arguments. They don't just get along perfectly the whole time. So I think their relationship is good and realistic, and I love to see it. There were just so many good things in this volume, and so much good representation. There was also representation about different family dynamics, different types of home lives, and it touched a little bit on discrimination in other countries. So that led to me doing a little bit of my own research. I think that Nick is so caring and supportive, and I really love that. And like I said, I really love his mom. There's also a new animal introduced in this book. I won't say much about that or show you it, but it's very adorable, so I liked that. Because it's a graphic novel and it's contemporary, I think that these books have been fun and easy to read, but they still go over very important topics. But for me, they're pretty easy to get through quickly, but I still take my time with them and look at the art and try to take in all the details. I think that this book was very honest and realistic, and I think that it could really make a lot of people feel seen, and not just in one way when it comes to one topic. I think that it could be relatable for a lot of people. So I think it's important for books like these to exist, and for people who need them to read them, or even people who can't relate. It's good to educate yourself on those experiences. I think this book also has a good emphasis on friendship and family. It's not just about the romance. And with one of the main families in the book, I think it's nice to see a parent who actually cares about what their kid does and they aren't just carefree about everything, so I liked seeing that. I'm really invested in this series, and this book was a little difficult to read in the sense of just it being emotionally heavy, but I still enjoyed it and was glad I was reading it. It reminded me of my experience earlier this year reading the middle grade novel in verse Louder Than Hunger by John Shu. Topics were pretty similar when it comes to things like eating disorders and OCD, but again, I felt that it was important for me to read it and get that perspective. So, like Louder Than Hunger, I thought it was difficult to read at times, but in a good way. Like I said, it's honest. I think that we need that. I think it's important. And though it gets quite heavy, I do feel that it was still overall hopeful, and I liked that. I think it could give people hope. It also goes over trauma and how trauma can come from things that you wouldn't have thought about. You wouldn't have thought that it affected you in that way, but then you reflect on it and you realize that it does. Like all the other volumes so far, I thought that this volume was sweet, wholesome, cute, an example of a healthy relationship and healthy friendships. Thought it was important. I liked that it had different POVs. I would say Charlie is the main character, but it does show a lot from Nick's point of view as well, and sometimes some side characters. And I always enjoy the animals in this series. I think that different perspectives always help us understand more. I loved the way a lot of things happened in this book. I also just want to show you the cover. I really like this cover. I really like the color schemes of it. I think it's really nice looking. I'm happy to have had something recently that I'm genuinely really enjoying reading, like a lot. And because this review is going to be so close in proximity when it comes to their upload dates to my other reviews of recent Heartstopper books I've read, I will talk more about my progress with the TV show, but I think I'll do that in my review of the 5th volume. I realized either when reading this or one of the next couple books I'm going to talk about that I think this author is potentially becoming one of my favorites, just based on the representation she writes and the topics she writes about. And of course, she's a very talented artist as well. And I like the way she handles these topics in a very mature, honest, realistic, and healthy way. I don't feel like she's romanticizing anything that shouldn't be romanticized or glorifying anything. So I'm really excited to read more from her. So far I've only read from the Heartstopper universe, but she has some other books that I would definitely like to read sometime, and my library has a lot of them, so that's easy for me. So there's my review of Volume 4 of Heartstopper. I really enjoyed this one. This one was a great one. The best volume of the series so far, in my opinion. If you've read anything from Heartstopper or anything by this author, I'd love to hear your thoughts if you've seen the TV show, and thank you for watching.